morning, everyone. Happy Monday morning. My name is Sarah Parent. I'm the training coordinator at Ntracts, and I apologize for that noise. But those are some of your colleagues signing in to join us this morning. And so this is being recorded, so be mindful of that. And so you'll have that recording. I'm sure Erin and her team will communicate, if you need to revisit it, or if you have colleagues that are unable to attend, say, either in person or on the phone, you'll have that to refer back to. So this morning, I'm with you today. I came from Indianapolis, not too far, and the weather's the same, which is kind of a bummer, right? But we are going to get you up and trained for going from your previous contract management system over to Ntracts, and I think you'll find it pretty intuitive. I hope you're excited about some of the features that your health system has added. So we'll do system training, how you sign in, search for contract records, finding those important documents you need, and then also how you submit contract requests through the workflow, and if you are a person who needs to review a request, what your role will be as well. So that's our goal this morning. The contract analyst team is going to start out doing a contract process update with you. So
yes. Hi, I'm Erin Greer. You may know most of you. Becca was going to do a presentation, but she's running a few minutes late, so I'm going to kind of pinch it for her and give you the contract process update. And then Erin Bradley's going to step in and give you a little update on the value analysis side. So what's a contract? I think everybody's kind of familiar with that. It's basically anything that has a signature. So anything from leases, purchase agreements, permits, linkage agreements, even sometimes things you might not think are contracts. There will be contracts from a legal perspective. So the rule of thumb is if it has a signature on it, it's probably a contract and legal needs to see it. There are certain special approvals that might be needed. So any business or physician ventures, they'll need to go through Kevin England's office. Educational affiliation agreements will need to go through organization development. Any kind of software or IS technology is going to need to go through both IS and IS security. And those might also be in things where you might not realize it, like pieces of equipment might have built-in software, they might connect to the network. So there might be some security issues, even when it might not seem like it on this. So that's why we like to send it to them so they can investigate that. Managed care contracts need to go through the managed care department, and any capital, supply, equipment, and service needs to run through the value analysis team. And I think we've kind of gotten that process pretty good. We've been running a lot more things through them for approval first. Is this your slide?
No, it's Megan.
Okay. So the value analysis review process, it includes legal, usually those 4 types of contracts that I mentioned. They'll be submitted to value analysis for approval. Value analysis will submit it to Ntracts, just like right now they submit it to Ntracts for department. It'll go to our legal triage. It'll go to one of the contract liaisons for review, which would be myself, Gretchen, or Lainey. We're going to give it a high-level review. And then we'll send it to Anna or Megan, who give it a full legal review. And then we come with value analysis, Chelsea Friends, to negotiate any of those changes with the vendor. They'll help the department do that. And then we'll just keep repeating that process over and over until we get to the final stages with the vendor. And then after it's fully approved through value analysis, IS security, and the department, then we can route it for signature. And we're going to continue to use DocuSign with Ntracts, like we are with Ntracts. There are a few exceptions to that, when we might need to get a wet signature, but for the most part, we're going to be using DocuSign. Yes, that's there.
So many of your requests fall into either a supply, a service, or a piece of equipment. And so we wanted to just take this time to kind of just review our value analysis structure, how that works, how our value teams work, how our value analysis steering team works, and then how you can actually submit your request to follow that value analysis process, which will happen prior to the legal IS and IS security review, which is kind of the Ntracts portion of the contract process. So our value analysis process aligns with our top 2 strategies for the health system to unify MHS identity and accelerate system integration and to reduce our overall cost structure. So we're using this process for products, services, and equipment. So when we talk about service, we're talking about any contracted service for a piece of equipment, or if you're contracting with someone to provide you a service. And following this process, we're trying to make sure that we have best pricing across the health system. So we utilize benchmarking tools to make sure that any contract that you're entering in that falls into these 3 buckets, that we're able to negotiate the best price. We're also able to follow our value analysis process to ensure that we're using common vendors across the health system. So a lot of times we have services that are provided in all of our cities, and we can coordinate that through the value analysis process. We're also able to gather evidence-based literature in regards to clinical needs and new products coming into the organization, and also able to work with our partners through the MSS and the BJC Collaborative to see if there's any contract that has already been negotiated that we might be able to just use their terms that are already out there to save legal time and money there. So our new request process is we get it on Memorial Central, which do you have here? Yes, that's right. So on Memorial Central, if you go to department and then supply chain, and the top link here, request to evaluate, this will bring you to a landing page that will allow you to pick a supply, a service, or capital equipment. And when you click on that link, it will give you the list of questions that are needed for contract review with legal, but also IS security and the IT needs. All of the questions are already preloaded there for you to answer, and then that will automatically send a request to my team, which will then populate our agendas for the value team. Anything that So our value analysis structure, we have our steering team, our value teams. Our value teams meet monthly, and our steering team also meets monthly. Everything will go to the value analysis team for review. So they will review all capital equipment requests, all new supply requests, all service agreements, and then any savings opportunity also falls into their role. Anything that will be any capital purchase that is over $50,000, or if it's off contract in regards to the health system vendor, anything that is an increase in supply spend of over $25,000, or any service agreement that is over $25,000 will need to go to the steering team for approval. Once it is approved by the value team and the value analysis steering team, if that's necessary, we will load it into Ntracts for you. And then Ntracts will be the system that we use to ensure that it has IS security, and legal review as well. Any questions on the value analysis approval process and how that will flow into Ntracts? Good. I will turn it back over to the legal team.
All right, so
many of you are aware, we have contract liaisons to help facilitate the contracting process. And so it's good to point out exactly what it is their role is in contract reviews. And as you saw on the first slide that had the loops in them, the contract liaisons do the pre-review for Anna and I, helps move the contracts along really quickly. So they'll go through, they identify some legal issues that they know that we're going to see. Particularly Erin has been with the organization, the department, for over 10 years, so picked up on a lot of the things that changes they know we're going to make. So they'll go ahead and make those. They also will identify some of the, they will identify a lot of the business issues as well for you guys. So if you guys want an early no-cost termination, we always recommend that. Ultimately, it's a business decision. Sometimes they can read a piece of the contract and say, hey, this doesn't sound like a very good business term. Is this something you guys really want? So they will do that. They also help facilitate the contract through to business development, IT, value analysis. They'll make sure that anytime that we need their opinion, that they're being consulted and we're sorting that out and getting those opinions finalized. They also manage the signatures for us, which is all through DocuSign and will remain through DocuSign. And then, of course, maintain our contract database to make sure it's accurate. And then we're getting all of the expired contracts renewed as needed and archived if they're not. So we created a few years ago when we went live with Process Manager the contract management inbox. So you can email it for any time that you're having issues with Ntracts. You need an agreement archived, you need a responsible party updated, access to Ntracts or report. We triage that out and give it out to whichever contract liaison is sort of on deck for that issue or that affiliate. And then if you have questions about where your contract is, where it's at in the review process, good thing about Ntracts is it will be able to give us a little better views into the contracts and the contract review process. But you are always also welcome to contact your contract liaison to find out exactly where it's at. Help finding contracts. We have over 10,000. Actually, when you're converting to Ntracts, have 80,000 documents in Ntracts that are going to have to be facilitated over to Ntracts. So it can be difficult navigating that system and just that many documents, but we're always here to help you with that. Again, status update, and then any new users you have. We are trying to keep Ntracts pretty limited on access. We find that with a lot of departments, having one centralized person to handle their agreements really helps that person learn the contract process. So we want to try to keep that mentality and keep users limited as much as possible. But if we approve your new user, we will also train them. So the contract liaisons, as you can see, we haven't rolled out Decatur yet, and we're going to wait a little bit of time before we do that. But Erin Greer currently is with NPS, NBH, Memorial Home Services. It says PPA, but actually I always give those to Lanny, so I must have forgot to move that over. Gretchen takes all of MHS and MMC, and then Lanny takes Passment, Taylorville, and Lincoln. Anna and I handle MHQA, which is also kind of going away in MHP. These will probably change as we bring on Decatur, but for now, these are your contract liaisons. Now, legal's role. I would just like to make a plea that if you have access or trouble downloading a contract or adding a contract as an attachment, it's a good thing to reach out to your contract liaison, not your lawyer, about. Our job is really to assess the contracts for risk and help you determine how low, medium, high the risk of the agreement is. We try to mitigate some of the risks with the language that we put in. Sometimes you're just not able to get there, and ultimately, most of the time, unless something is absolutely illegal, which there are a few things that we just contractually cannot do, most of the time it's going to be a business decision. So we'll make some recommendations based on the risk and language changes that are needed. And then we also negotiate terms to minimize the risk. A lot of going back and forth, that loop, that little loop that you saw in the picture, that's what we're doing, is we're trying to make the language reduce our risk as much as possible. So most of you, many of you in this room are aware, I hope, although I just had a friend recently say, wait, you do more than just contracts? We do a lot more than just reading contracts to this organization. We're always advising on HIPAA, START, anti-kickback. We're helping with privacy. We're providing guidance on policies. We're Decatur affiliation. We were obviously very intricately involved in that. Monica's here. I get involved in a lot of patient care issues, primarily psych. So we wear a lot of hats, and that's why I say, again, if there's something that you can follow up with and ask your contract liaison, you're probably going to get a quicker response and a better response if you go through them, and it kind of frees up Anna and I's time. And Katie Anderson is our new attorney from Decatur. It frees up our time to tackle these big, risky areas. So the last thing we just want to touch on, the contract review process. There is some stake for you in this game. A lot of times what we see is departments will send their contract to us, having never read it, having never negotiated any of the terms of it, telling us what they think that the contract should be about, and then we read the contract and it reads the complete opposite of what you as a business owner wanted the contract to have in it. So the best thing for you to do as a department, and really your role, is to read through that contract, make sure that the business terms match what you're trying to do. If they don't, any time that you can negotiate that ahead of time kind of helps send the process through. A lot of times we ask questions on initiation as to what the contract's about, and there are often times that the dialogue that we end up having, that's not really not only how the contract's not laid out, but also not what you're really wanting. Good examples with PHI. You would not believe the number of times up front, no, there's no PHI, no, there's no PHI. And then about the third time we ask the question, oh, well, my favorite line, just the patient's name and medical record number. So the more you know about your contract and what you're buying and what you want up front, and the more you've reviewed it up front, it's going to make things a lot quicker. And then again, ultimately, we're going to put the business risk back on the business departments. We don't run your business, you run your business. So making sure that you're comfortable with that, and we're always open for discussions as to why we think something might be a high risk, or why we might think the low risk is acceptable or the medium risk, and kind of help you vet that, but ultimately it is the business department's decision. You want to make sure you respond to all of our questions. That's another one of our things, is we will send back 10 questions and get answers to 6. Then we have to send it back to, we still need these other 4 questions answered. And you want to make sure that your signature is in keeping with the payment authorization levels. They just redid those with the new org structure. I think it's pretty clean and easy to follow, a lot easier than it's been in the past. So help us man that. Travel and reimbursement is always ultimately a business decision. We try to get them to use our policy so we know what those costs are. So ultimately it's up to you. Access to protected health information, like I said, we just need to know, is the vendor going to access, store protected health information, and also, will they have any access to our network? Because that could bring down all of our clinical systems if they don't secure that properly. Termination I talked about. Ultimately, business decision whether you want to get out. I can't tell you how many contracts we've wanted to get out, and there was no early, no cost termination. So that's a big one that I would fight for if I were you, but ultimately your decision. And then this one just helps us out a lot, is a Word document from the vendor. It's a lot easier in software and in the process to have a Word document that we can redline, makes the review go much, much quicker. So that's just a lead from our side of things. So any questions on that? Really brief refresher.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If, say Dave signs a master agreement, but then I submit a statement of work that's within my authorization, does he sign the master? Does he need to sign that statement of work, or is it okay?
You can sign it. So when it comes to masters, the masters should be signed based on the life of the agreement. So if it's the total amount is over
Forgetting what Kevin's amount is now, I think it's over 600,000.
That is correct.
Yes. So if it's over, or if it's, let's say it's 550,000, Kevin can sign that master, but let's say you have one statement of work that's 10,000, you can sign that.
All right.
So the master, the idea is to look at the total life of the agreement, and that total, we try to cap those all at 5 years unless it's software. But then that individual statement of work can be signed by.
As long as it references the master.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, any other questions? Any other questions? Monday morning contract work? All right. Well, let's jump into looking at Ntracts. And first thing I'm going to do is just briefly talk about, let me pull this up a little bit. That'll get. I just want to talk about your transition into Ntracts from your previous contract management system. You are going to use single sign-on, okay? So I talked briefly with Erin this morning. It is a URL that you go to access Ntracts. Erin will send that out, but it is mhsil.ntracts.net, and you'll be approached with this screen, okay? This will be the first time when you go. When you go, you're going to click on the rail labeled with your health system, and then you're going to be connected to your network, a network sign-in. That's where you get to use your network username and password. You don't need to remember another username, another password. That is the single sign-on interaction. So there's one caveat to that about which browser you use. If you're using a Microsoft browser, Internet Explorer, Edge, you'll be done. That's the one, it's like a token. You'll be signed in each time you go right, you'll be signed in right into Ntracts. If you're using Chrome or Firefox, that interaction, you'll have to keep using that network username and password, okay? The Ntracts realm, just for full disclosure, you're going to see me sign on it. That's for us internally to support you, and for me to sign in, since I'm not on your Active Directory. And this is why I have so many passwords. So a lot of questions just as we're letting us sign in for a minute. Sometimes people will say, well, what if I change my network password and all that? It'll always stay updated with whatever you have on the network. All right. This is what happens when you sign in, okay? Right now, I'm in a stage site, but in production site, you'll have a logo in the middle. I think we're working on that. So this is a stage site, so I don't want to train obviously in your actual production site. As Megan alluded to, we've got a lot of documents that we're migrating over. There's a lot of work going on back at Ntracts still with your team, and so it's not safe. And also for confidentiality, just making sure we don't expose anything to people that don't need to see that information. So I am in a stage site. So I always give my little disclaimer if you see junk contract records, like with the name of test or, just gobbledygook. Obviously, that's not what you will do in your real site. And so my whole motto is junk in, junk out. So if you're not putting valuable information, if you have contact information for a party, I would say make sure you put it in there. Don't just put the minimal amount, because when it comes to getting the value from our system, being able to report, and some of you, I know that doesn't apply to, but it does apply to some of your other colleagues. And so when they run those reports, they want to see valuable data. Just be mindful of that. So Sage is not a good site for running reports on. The other thing, when you sign in, your access, which I'll refer to this as the top navigation bar, you're not going to see all of those items. I have a very high level access that has this administration menu. That's going to be limited to your contract liaison team. Okay, you're not going to see that. That's all security driven. And so when you sign in, you can expect to see the contract records and the contracts that are tied to them that apply to you. That's with searching and reporting. That's all security driven. So if there's ever a question about why can't I find this contract record, those are questions when Erin showed the email of the common email that they shared. Those are questions you want to point to them let them know what's going on, and they'll analyze that, and they have the permission and ability to adjust that. Now, that's not even with contract records only. It's also some of the apps, as we work through today, your ability to even start a workflow for a contract request, all security driven. And so when you can't do it, email them. Don't sit there and get frustrated for 5 minutes. Just go ahead and email them, talk through it. That's definitely not what we want at Ntracts as well. The other piece with regard to this is, I just lost my train of thought. Well, that doesn't matter. Well, we'll just keep going. We're going to focus primarily right now on the system side of things. How can I find contracts? How do I get to what I need to see? There was a data migration with address book data, contract records, as well as documents. So that's what I was. I want to back up and talk about, I've used that term contract record, and that may be new. In Ntracts, once a contract is put into our system, we refer to it as contract record. That has all the data fields, and on that contract record, you're going to see a documents tab. That is where your contract should live, and any other supporting documentation, from emails, SOWs, any of those items that I saw on one of the slides. You could upload any document that is related to that contract. So using that term contract record is just how we refer to it in the system. So when you're searching for a contract record. Okay. All right, so across the top, we have the apps menu. You may see contracts, which is kind of the core of our system. That's where we'll spend most of our system training this morning, as well as an address book. The address book, a lot of your security permissions are going to be a read-only, just so that the contract liaisons to kind of have control over that data, making sure duplicate address book entries aren't created, which is a very good thing. We highly recommend that at Ntracts. But most of all, the difference with address book from what you're used to in your current system is that it is a completely separate address book. A lot of times people will say, Sarah, can you connect it to my Outlook? Can you we do a data migration originally. So we've got your data in there with your contacts. But it is its own separate address book. The very unique situation, and quite honestly, the positive here, is what I'm getting at, is that all parties that are added to a contract record are driven from the address book. So if you have change in contact information, whether it be a last name to a physician, address, email, anything like that, as long as it's updated in the address book, it's updated on every contract record you'll look at, which is very powerful. You don't have to touch every contract record. And so I always like to give that background so people understand why do we have that separate address book and there. The other piece is, let's say someone leaves your organization, maybe they're a responsible party on hundreds of contract records, maybe like a signatory. They leave your organization. We have a utility in our system that can specify, you could pull their name, substitute them with whoever took over their position, and it changes it on all contract records in our system. So as a system admin, which will be your contract liaison team, that is powerful. It's a huge time saver. The inbox, we're going to jump into this when we go to the workflow portion of our training. This is our center for communication with workflow messages. So if you're a requester, your request, you're actually keying it in your inbox, and then you'll have a record of it. As you can see, the top 3, those were me queuing up some of the stage for today, and then some testing that's been done. If you're a reviewer, this is where you're going to get your message. All of the contract liaison teams are going to get their messages there. This is where you interact with the workflow as it moves from person to person. In full disclosure, your contract liaison team, they have that common email. We have connected to create what we call an inbox. They have a common inbox on here as well. And so when you see those multiple tabs, you're not going to have those. You'll have yours, and you'll have your name on it. However, that is called inbox proxy. If you have any shared responsibilities with anyone, whether maybe you're going on vacation, medical leave, someone needs visibility into your inbox, or the ability to answer messages for you, you can build out that inbox proxy. If you click on this plus sign, that will bring up a pop-ups where you'll specify their email address. Let's register with Ntracts, so most likely their Memorial Health email. And then the name, that's what you want to appear on the tab, so you don't have to be formal, you have a nickname for them. And then permission level requested. So are you asking to view, or are you wanting to be able to view and respond to their message? Now, I don't know about you, but at first, when I first learned about the system, that made me nervous. Like, okay, is all that tracked? Is that all, is there an audit there? Yes. If you answer on someone else's behalf, it's very clear in the system that someone else answered on your behalf. Now that gets sent to them, they have to approve it. They have to say accept or decline. If they want to do the same, they have to walk through the same process. So it's not going to automatically be reciprocal. And I highly recommend when you get into the system, once you get the green light from Erin and Megan and her team, that this is one of the first things you do. Okay? When you click on Inbox the first time, there is a two-step setup process. It's going to look just like this. And then right away I would think, okay, who do I need proxy to? Because you never know what's going to happen, especially medical leave, things come up, maternity leave, all kind of stuff. So definitely something I highly recommend. So with my Inbox proxy, what I'll do later at the second part of our training, that's how I'm going to simulate the workflow. So I could represent, where the different hats. If I'm a requester, initiating a contract request, or if I'm a reviewer, looking over a document. Okay, so that's how I have built out. You can see the generic name. Obviously, you would have specific names. One thing with Inbox, kind of like just Inbox maintenance, the interface information. You can't delete messages. And so some people, they get really frustrated with that. That's for auditing reasons. We have some controls at Ntracts, like if there is something that really needs to be removed, the contract liaison team could contact us. But if that is something, if you're like, I just want to see things that need my attention, I don't want to see anything completed. We have these filters here across the top, and I would recommend to you new, open, and past due. If you're someone that wants to focus on what needs your attention, kind of archiving away things that are completed. They're still there, so if you need to search back, because you'll be surprised. There will be some times where you'll come up, oh, I need to look for that. Well, you can, just make sure you unmark, either do all or check completed with the others. You do have a message search. That will look at the subject line as well as contract record number. Okay, so anything within the message, that's not part of that search. Usually you're going to be looking at contract record number or something in the subject line. And then, of course, across the top, there are ways to sort your message list. You can see that this little bluish purple is the current sort, which is data's message. Okay. All right, let's keep going here. The start menu, again, this is where if you are putting in a contract request, this is where you start it. So you'll go to start, contract, this smells very expensive, and then new contract approval. We'll do that the second half. Reports, that's my understanding, doesn't apply to this large group, just so you know we have a very robust report tool that can extract data out of our system. Administration menu, as I mentioned, does not apply to this group. That brings us to the help menu. Briefly letting you know, we have a lot of Ntracts resources. Sounds like you have a very powerful contract liaison team that is there to help as well. If you're someone that likes the user guide, that's in documentation. Okay. It is WordPress driven, so a lot of times I'll have people ask if they could print it. I wouldn't recommend printing it. It's a lot of pages. You could search on it a lot easier, and we update it often. So that might. Support Center. This is an outside portal to interact with our Ntracts support. And again, it sounds like we will have interaction with your contract liaison team, so that won't be something you really need to worry about. There are some extra resources in that support center. I'll show you really quick. It is an outside portal, so you do need to sign up the first time you go. It does not hook up to your single sign-on. Sorry. There are some great quick reference guides and tutorial videos on here that I'm a little biased about. I did them, but if you're someone who wants, I would say you buy a brand new TV, you've got the big user manual, and then you have like a quick start guide. Those are what our quick reference guides are versus our user guides. So if you go to the knowledge base tab, you have the quick reference guides here. Tutorial videos are there, as well as frequently asked questions. It's really light, probably hard for you to see, but right where my mouse is, if you click on that, it's a magnifying glass. So if you're looking for something specific, and box proxy, or you can do that as well. The quick reference guides are 1 to 2 pages focusing on a specific task. Again, just I dissected the user guide. What you won't find on here, and I'll be very honest so you don't get frustrated, is your workflow, because it's custom to your health system. I got all of our clients on this screen. Everyone's accessing this. So those are things that anything that's specific, those are questions for your team. The last part in the help menu is the Learning Center. You'll be subjected to My Voice if you choose to choose e-learning. You're getting a good training today. The first 7 modules are user training, so covering what we're going to cover today. The e-learning modules will go a little bit more in depth. We're trying to give you a better, higher overview to be mindful of your time. So I want you to know that they're there, and to know that you'll have this recording, you'll have the e-learning if you need to revisit specific things. The next 7 are for system administrators, not the majority of this group, and then advanced webinar training. These are all free, available 24/7. There's no cost in it. All right, let's jump into the system. What I'd like to start talking about is searching, okay? Because that's really, for the majority of you, you're going to sign in. How do you find what it is that you need? We have 3 main search methods. The first one is this full site search up here in the upper right-hand corner, which I apologize. This is from it wandered up. It was supposed to be down here. That is from the WebEx. Full site search. Going to search contract records and address book entries. And so you can put in a contract record number, part of a contract name, primary or affiliated party. I'm going to do something really general here so I can get a lot of good results like I wanted here. So you can see the icon represents what you're clicking on. Contract record, organization, address book entry, an individual. And right here is proof of the migration that I talked about with the address book as well as the contract record. Now, if you click on a contract record from this drop-down, it is going to open what we call summary view. So I'm going to click on one here. You can see this is one of the views or one of the access methods with regard to security. This is a summary view. So this is not the actual contract record. It's high-level overview of this particular record. This is one of the bare minimum levels of access that your system administrators can give. But you can see the kind of information that's brought back. All right, let's scroll a little fast. If this isn't enough, for some people this is enough. They could get the information and they're good. If you want to open the record from this screen, you will click, I have the pencil, you may have something that says open contract record. This depends on your permissions. I think most of you are read-only. So whatever icon is right here, you'll click on that and it'll actually open the record itself. And I know you're anxious. Yep, go ahead.
Will existing numbers that we currently have in Ntracts carry over into Ntracts, or will they be all renumbered?
So that's a great question. And Aaron has mentioned, I want you to help confirm it. Are we storing it in the reference field for the previous, do you remember?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So
it will have a new Ntracts number, but the old number will be referenced.
Some way
Yes,
to reference
somewhere.
back.
yeah, so exactly what Aaron said. We have to give them all new numbers in our system, which is our contract record number up here. But this reference field will house any previous. I think it's what, 7 down, 6 down, I can't count quickly. And that is a searchable field. So to answer your question, you will be able to search on it.
I think the other really cool thing about Ntracts is and the difference from Ntracts is the new contract numbers it is gonna be the same when you're requesting the contract through when it's activated. So right now, if you remember, we have a process manager number that's 4 digits, and then we have like 10-digit number on the library side. That's no longer, we will just have one number in Ntracts, in addition to the reference. Yeah, so you just have to remember one number moving forward, which I think is great.
And there'll be several, when it's coming through the workflow, it's gonna be in your inbox. That contract record number will be very easy for you to find. You'll end up, I hope, searching on it, and we'll talk about the impact of that when we get into the workflow. But yeah, the other fire system is from the moment it's initially put in by the requester.
The other thing is, right now in Ntracts, the contract number, the first 4 digits are related to your organization. That will not be the case for the Ntracts number. They're just all going to be sequential, so we won't have them parsed out by organization.
Basically one big database instead of the 5 different databases we have now, which is also really helpful in a search, particularly for system employees.
All right. Well, we're in this contract record. I'm gonna go ahead and dive into the record itself. There's different search things, but let's just roll with it since we already started talking about a couple of the fields. So this is the contract record. You can see across the top, this one happens to be an active workflow. That's important if you're opening a record and knowing. That's like that's your way of being nudged to say, hey, don't mess with this right now. Because this is going from inbox to inbox with the participants in the workflow, and they're making changes through the messages. If you have questions or need to make a change, you need to be contacting the contract liaisons on this one when you see that banner across the top. You'll see already this familiar tabbing structure, the way that we organize the data. So the first tab that we're looking at is record details, and I think it's been up for a few minutes for some of you to see the information that's on that tab. You've got your record number, creation, last update date. The system takes care of all of assigning those as well as updating those as well. Your contract name, you will have a naming convention. It's the legal entity plus the vendor plus the contract type. Your contract description, if you want to further describe this contract, you can do that there. Reference, we talked about that field for the ones that are bringing over from your previous contract management system. You'll have those numbers there. And like I said, all of our fields are searchable and reportable, so that's nice that you can still search on that number. Commencement or start date, you've got your internal legal entity, department, contract status, the category, the contract category. Keyword tags, that's not commonly used by many of our clients, but if you have a way that if you just want to add additional information to search on, you can use that field. Next is the security matrix. This really doesn't apply to the majority of you, but just understand that's how they build out security, who can access this record. And then you have some general information at the bottom with regards to HIPAA VAA required, if the contract was closed, and some information there as well. Okay. What I want to point out to you is we're looking at an active or an executed contract, right? What will happen is when you put in a contract request and when that, when it's routed through and hopefully ultimately approved, all of this information that we're looking at gets matched from what was keyed in those workflow messages. So this is brought over from the data migration, but going forward, using those contract requests, everything will map to what you're looking at right now. Next is the data sheet. This is going to include all the parties involved, your external, your internal, some key dates, some information taken from the contract with regards, like Megan was mentioning earlier about no-cost termination, those notice days, if it's assignable. This is information that will, again, come right from the workflow messages. The bottom is some compensation information, and I believe you're using a custom tab to store that, so you don't expect to see that. There's some extra security around that, and that's why they made that decision. At this point, I want to talk about our parties. They are a little bit different than how you may be used to. Primary party, those are the individuals listed on the contract. So you're going to expect your internal and your external parties to be listed there. We use type to delineate between the two. You've got your internal entity and your external. These are live links straight to the address book, like I mentioned. the date. Sorry, this mouse is super sensitive. You can scroll a little lower. There you go. And again, much of this information obviously will be put in by your contract liaison, but so you can see where it's all mapped to. Affiliated parties, my understanding is you're going to be using that for your affiliate. Okay, so if there's a service that will have it at many sites, you'll look at that. You'll have that there. Again, you'll have the type, so you can tell what that means. And then responsible parties are going to be the majority of you in this room, anyone involved in the workflow. Okay, and they kind of mock this to be a little bit similar to Ntracts, and you'll have the primary, secondary, and tertiary owners. All right. The title up here in this display information as of. In our system, you have the ability to keep this contract record for the entire life cycle. So if it comes up on a termination date, and if there's a renewal or an amendment, a new data sheet can be created. To do it manually, I'm going to click this button, but you'll be doing it through the workflow. But basically kind of makes a virtual copy of this entire data sheet, allowing you then to make the changes if there was an amendment. You'll give it a new title, like this one, this example, Amendment 1, extend term, and then you still have that ability to see the entire history of the data sheet in this drop-down right here. So whenever you come to the data sheet, you'll always see the latest one, but if I want to go back, I can. So it'll, if there's an amendment, renewal, a change in a responsible party that you want to capture, that's the significance of this multiple data sheet concept. So you don't have to create a new contract record is what I'm saying. All right, documents. When you come here, this is where you should expect to see the agreement itself. We also, our system allows for you to upload any other type of document you need to. See this example. Some of this, again, is just testing data, but your project team that works with us came up with a document type list, which is what I clicked on right now. I know you can't, read it right now, but anywhere from your BAA, the current executed agreement, to FMV, you'll be labeling the documents you put in your system. If for some reason you are coming here to, well, this wouldn't apply to you, but you've got scan, uploaded links, those are more people who can edit, if you have to manually do that. But to actually interact and open, you can click, click right on it. You have that ability there. Now again, I have permissions to edit that document because you guys have it in-app editing, which we'll do into in a little bit. But that is how you actually view the document itself. All right. Actions tab. I'll talk high level about this, and then we'll plug it in when we get to the workflow portion. This gives total transparency into where the workflow or the contract request is at in the process. So let's say you put in a request 3 weeks ago, and you're looking at your watch going, what's going on here? You don't have to bug the team. You can come to this Actions tab, well, you might have to, but I hope you don't. Sorry, Megan. No. Actions tab, the very top message is going to expose who's sitting on it. Now, in this case, looks like it's completed. But this shows all the messages that have went in and out of the different participants' inbox. So at the very top message would show the last step. I know it seems weird because this one still says it's an active workflow, but yeah, it's completed. Again, it's a test site. It's probably something we changed. But this will show you, so this one was with Erin, so she completed it. So the other piece is, I can click on this, and this is security driven, so if you click on it and it doesn't happen for you, that's your permission. It'll show you the message and then any responses as well. So if you're curious, you have that, there's that capability. Here's a little preview of the workflow message as we look through here. But, so very helpful in giving visibility of where you're at in the process. If you have questions, where is it at, whose desk, so to speak, is it on? Comments. So someone can come here if they have edit rights, they can manually put in a comment on this tab. The other way that comments are driven or mapped from here is within your workflow message. There's going to be a comment field. Use that as if you were communicating via email. what information is important that the next person, or even anybody in the workflow process, needs to know. Do you need a quick turnaround? Is this the only vendor? Do you use this vendor in the past? You know, all that types of information is what you'll be putting in the comments, and then they get mapped to this tab. Related contracts allows you to create a unique relationship between this record and another one in the system. You can see here, they have, those drop-downs were all configured with your project team, but BAA, contract, FMV, lease, letter of participation, master agreement, order form, rate agreement, service schedule. Just allows you to come here and then you would be able to access that record, as long as you have security permissions to it. History, this is going to be an audit trail for every click in this record. So you're going to expect to see everything I just clicked on will show up here. It does take a few minutes because it is logging a lot of information, not a few minutes, a few seconds. It does load who the user was, what did they do. What I really like about this tab is, let's say on Monday, I came to this record, I pulled up an agreement, I come back Wednesday, and that agreement's gone off the Documents tab. Well, there's no mystery. You can come to the History tab. This wasn't right. You can come to this History tab, reload it again, and it would show me what user deleted that, what user added a responsible party, what user made a comment. It would expose that information, and you'd be able to see and go from there. For some reason, I think the one that I chose is not liking me. We'll keep going here. We'll come back to it. Initiation questions, and then this custom field. So this is, these are custom tags. So all of the first 7 of the history, those were what are standard tags in Ntracts. So your team said to us, look, that's great, you got all those standard fields, but we need more fields to capture information as part of our business process. And so they created, these are just 2 examples, initiation questions, which you're going to see these if you're a contract requester. And then custom fields, and then there's several others. It just, those are driven based on the category of the contract. Okay. These are all workflow questions. All right. I'm going to not make changes there, jump over. Questions so far about the contract record? Okay. I'm going to show you, so we talked about the full site search up here. The other 2 ways to search are from the apps menu and contracts. So this is kind of the core of our system. You might think of it as your contract library in Ntracts. This is where you would come to search for contract record. I'll pull it up a little bit here for you. The other 2 search methods are right here, these radio buttons. By default, quick search will be selected. This is going to look at a select number of fields in the system. So making it quick. For you, just to know, your system administrators are controlling what fields those are, so they've made some decisions. All you need to know is those are the most popular fields. Your contract record number, your party, contract name, things like that. When you come to do a quick search, you will have these search operators is equal to, contains, and starts with. Contains is my go-to, and that's kind of the default. What I would suggest is a best practice. If you are searching on a numeral value, like a date or a contract record number, switch to is equal to. Because contains, doing that, you're going to get all different combinations. It might not be that many results to shift through, but it's just something, it's a habit that I do. Starts with, I don't use that as much, but if you're not sure on the exact spelling, you want to give it your best shot, put the beginning sound there. One suggestion. When you do a quick search, or the next one I'm going to show you, is it's important to understand we archive out any of your closed contracts. Okay? And so if you want those included in your results, you'll need to check this box right here. Otherwise, we won't. They're archived out, trying to keep it nice and clean and easy for you to find what you need. Oh, I didn't know there was a touch. That was a touch screen. Sorry. Next up is search using filters. When you toggle to that radio button, you're going to have a drop down that's going to show all the standard fields in Ntracts. that you can search for a value. So one example that I'll run with here is maybe I'm looking for a category of contracts. So I'm going to select categories. And then you'll have your filter operators. I'm going to do is equal to in this example. And then in the next dropdown, I could expect to see all your contract categories in Ntracts. For this one, I'm going to do consignment just because I did some planning here. I'm going to come over here to do add filter. A lot of times people will say, well, Sarah, it didn't work. Will they forget to click add filter? And the reason why it doesn't automatically log that is because I could add additional filters if I needed to. So just be aware of that little jump over to add filter. You'll notice once I click that, it comes down here under current filters. So the system, when I hit search, is going to run a query on any contract that has a category of consignment and that I have access to. It's not going to show me anything I don't have access to. If I want to keep adding additional filters, maybe like contract status, equal to active, maybe your legal entity, you can add those. And you just keep adding them and it'll put it down with current filters. For this example and for time, I'm going to click search. And then I'll scroll down here because I maximized my screen here. The system will tell you how many records it found in red over here. And then obviously we can see them under the search results. And that obviously that search, I purposely honed in on that. But if you have 50 records or a larger number than 10, you're going to have page navigation up here that you can interact with. And then all of these, with the exception of the party column, are sorted columns. It's going to put it in ascending order of contract ID. You want to change that? Click on the sort order. So maybe you want to change it by termination date, status. If you don't like what's here, a lot of times people are like, Sarah, I want to change what I see. That's standard. That's just how the system is. If you're wanting more information, I would recommend that you run a report. And we have 4 reports ready for you, called standard reports in this dropdown, that I could export that search query, and I could choose from the 4 and then what output I want. A lot of my users use Excel, and that's just because they want to analyze or manipulate the data. But you have comma separated value for that's Excel, but stripped out formatting. That's more if you're trying to transfer from a database. Excel, HTML will open in this page, not good for printing. You've got PDF, another popular one, RTF, rich text format, and then Word. So you have that ability to go ahead and that's one reporting interaction. We have the report tool that's on that top navigation bar is much more robust, but we go ahead and put it here for those folks that are like, I want more information from there. Okay. So if you're running from this type of search, you've got some icons here on the far left. This is summary view. We talked about that. If I hover over it, it even reminds me to view summary. For the majority of you in this room, you're not going to see a pencil. You'll likely see a padlock. That's because you have read-only to the record. You can click on it. Don't think you're locked out. It just means you're locked from making change. And then paperclip. This is going to let you, it's informational. You can't click on it. It just lets you know how many documents are attached to it. To be able to view them, you have to have access to the record. This gear icon right now, this is kind of a jump ahead, but you can manage the entire life cycle within Ntracts. And so record maintenance is the workflow you're going to use when it comes up to termination or review time. And that helps facilitate the workflow for to make a decision to terminate, renew, or amend. And that's where you can start it from. Okay. Question. We're good. Okay. The additional tabs that are on the contract app here across the top, recently opened, going to show the last 10 that you've looked at. 10 contract records, excuse me. Favorites. This allows you to bookmark. Let me go ahead real quick and show you that interaction. If you're in a contract record, and let's be honest, it's usually not a favorite, it's usually a problem child if you're in there a lot and you want to bookmark it. This star here in the upper left, if I click on it, is now a favorite. You've bookmarked it to be able to put it on that favorite tab. You don't have to save the record or anything. If I come back here, I can expect to see that contract record. So if this one you're working in heavily, you just want to quick access to it. And then my responsibility, if you are listed as a responsible party on contract records, we will have a list here for you to see, and then be able to access them from that screen. Just so if you're sitting there wondering, what is this button? I don't want to act like I'm ignoring the elephant in the room. I have full access, full edit, everything. I can put a contract record manually into the system without the workflow. So that is a very limited permission. Those are for those one-off exceptions where there might have been some sort of other business process that didn't use the workflow, or you found an old contract that's still, that you want to put into your repository, found it in someone's file cabinet. That is the way that people who have edit rights can do that. Okay. All right, we are going to jump into the workflow portion now. Are there any other questions about the system, anything that you feel like I didn't show you, or burning questions as you think about moving from Ntracts to Ntracts? You're like, wait a minute, I didn't see that.
What information will be migrated from Ntracts to the new system? Or will we have to work in both worlds for a while?
Karen, you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so all of the information is going to be moved over to Ntracts. They're running reports, and then they're going to pull all those 80,000 documents, whatever, and move them over. It's going to take them about a week to get that moved over. In the meantime, we can't make any changes to our Ntracts system, so like changing responsible parties, rolling over dates, anything like that, because it won't carry over on the reports that they already ran. For reviews, we're going to continue to use Process Manager for a little while until we can validate that all the information is actually in Ntracts. And then anything that's already started in Process Manager will just be finished out in Process Manager. So we will email everybody and let you know when Ntracts is live and ready for contract submissions through Ntracts.
Aaron, will there be a period of time once you move everything over from Ntracts to Ntracts, would you say, hey, take one quick look or something to make sure you're seeing everything you have? If there's something we're missing, just get back with our.
Yeah. So Ntracts will not just go away immediately. We still have our contract with them for a little while, so once everything moves over to Ntracts and it's live, we'll let everybody know. You can go in and you should be able to view your contract. The permissions in Ntracts are a little bit different than Ntracts, so you may be able to see a little bit more, see a little bit less than you used to be able to see. So we'll let everybody know. You guys can go in and check, see if there's any contracts that you can't find, or something that's missing, something that doesn't look right. And if that's the case, then we can go back to those Ntracts files and correct them.
Does that answer your question completely?
Yes, thank you, yes.
All right.
Will end users still get a reminder of the contracts that are about to terminate, or?
Yes, that's a great question. And so I'm glad you said it, because that's a good segue into this. But you will get, the way Ntracts works is when you have, that information will come into your inbox, not inbox, your inbox in Ntracts. We realize not everyone is a daily user of Ntracts and is checking that. So what we've done is we create a daily pending item email that summarizes that you have items in your inbox that need your attention. So it's kind of your nudge. You will only get that if you have items that need your attention. You're not going to get that. We're not going to bug you with every little thing. We have some configuration ways to do that if that is something, but it changes for everyone in the organization. We can't just make it for individual people. So can't please everyone is what the whole, because sometimes we'll say, well, I want an email every time I have something in there. Well, right now, the standard, we have a pending item email that'll break everything down. It'll include a link to your Ntracts site, so you can click right on it, and with your single sign-on, you'll be signed in, and you can go straight to your inbox and address those items. Great question.
So I'm in the managed care department, so I handle all the contracts throughout the health system for the insurance company. So all of the rate increases, currently we use Ntracts as a reminder of charge master increase coming up, and those are 60 to 90 days prior to, so that we can have enough time to work on those. Is Ntracts, will I still get those kind of notifications, or is it something we have to check daily in the,
So, we are capable of doing that. As far as the specifics with that and what you're set up, let's take that offline with Aaron and Megan on how they have that set up. We can do that.
Okay,
It's just a configuration thing, I'm not sure, so let's circle back.
okay.
Okay. Other questions before we move? All right, doing well. Okay, so I have this high-level visual, like a lot of dots, a lot of text. I'll walk through it and kind of point out what applies to you, what does this all mean to you, and then we'll plug in what it looks like in the system after this. Okay, so on the very far left, for those of you who will submit contract requests, this is for all requests, whether it's supply chain, managed care, whatever, all requests is what they're using this workflow for. You will key in that information. From that, you'll start from the start menu, you'll get fields, you'll key all that information in, and that process is done. It'll then be assigned a contract record number in the system, so the contract record is created, and it is going to be routed to what we call a decision controller. Megan is getting the first message. She's going to look at it, and she's going to say, looks good, I'm going to assign it to one of the contract liaisons. She could look at it and say, this is missing information. I'm going to send it back to you with a question or needing more info. Or she herself, I saw she has some of your organizations, she may, take ownership and do the next steps. But she is the first decision controller. That term decision controller, as I use it today, that's your contract liaison. Okay, so I'll try to use them interchangeably, synonymously, but it is. In our system, though, you will see those words, since I want you to understand who that is. In a most general scenario, they're going to route it. To set it up, they're going to route. They could decide who they want to send it to, and what you're supposed to do. They have different roles for you, and that affects your permission as far as what you can do with the information you get. It's my understanding you'll have a reviewer, and that person is the one editing and giving suggestions to the actual document itself, the redlining. It will be done all within Ntracts. Sometimes you may have a wet signature versus DocuSign, so I put that in my, just an example. It could be built out a lot differently. This is just the most typical scenario when listening to your project team. Sometimes they also might send it just as a notification to someone, like Aaron mentioned to me this morning, HR. Maybe they just want a heads up that this is coming their way, that it was submitted. They can send kind of like an FYI. It doesn't require them to do anything. It's just this is coming, here you go. So that goes out, and it goes to each of those individuals, whoever is built out in that route builder, okay? All the information the initiator put in, anything that the decision controller did, because they have some information they're keying in as well, everything is routed. Full visibility, you can see everything, the documents, the comments, the fields that were filled in. Once that route is done, it goes back to your contract liaison. At that point, if there is an e-signature that needs to be done, you'll see they have that option, which is over here. You can use e-signature for your internal and external parties. I think that's what you've done right now. There's another feature. You won't be interacting with this, but just so you're aware of our system capabilities, we have an outside party interface. So that lets the contract liaison, if they want to interact with your vendor, it keeps them in the workflow, but it keeps them out of your Ntracts system, and everything is together, which is really nice. Basically, the intent is you're sending a document to them for them to redline or provide comments. And so that is available and could possibly be used by the contract liaison. But ultimately, a successful workflow is a decision to approve it. They're updating the contract status, which is this decision here. It's routing here, finalizing the data, one final look. If there's any adjustments, the termination date was kind of iffy, they weren't sure. They're finalizing all of that. They could send out some optional notifications to say, hey, here's the executed contract, here's a link to it. Everything's updated in the system, and then the workflow ends. What happens here is when this initiator or anybody else keys in information, it's all being held in the workflow. Not everything is going to be written to the contract record. So if I go to open the contract record, if I'm Megan or one of the contract liaisons, and I do it the first time it comes to me, I'm not going to see everything that's in the message. We hold all that because we realize that information can change. And so when it says contract record updated here, That's when I see all the information, all mapped to what we just looked at in our system. What you search on, when you open that record, then you're seeing all that. Makes sense? Okay. Let's see what that looks like in the system. And I am going to show the messages really that apply to you. I've done a lot of staging here just for time's sake to be respectful of your time. So again, if you are a requester, it's the start menu, you're hovering over contracts, and you're selecting new contract approval. This is actually an Ntracts message. We call it the intake survey. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit. The first two drop downs are something I see because of my login, but you're going to see, starting with general information and the information you put in. As you work through this, the questions are dynamic, meaning if I answer yes to this value analysis, one, that applies to the supply chain request. You can notice when I hit yes, you've got more questions to answer that are specific to that request. Your project team did a really good job with it. A lot of times I have clients that they just include everything and they make you figure it out. They've done a really good job making it specific to the request and honing in on it. So I have one that has like a client that has 300 questions in their intake. And I'm like, so I have to commend your project team. I think you'll be very impressed with the way that they really thought about each individual department and their needs. If you're selecting no, because it's not supply chain, you've got other questions that will make it dynamic. It's an agreement between MHS affiliates. You can see that's dynamic as well.
And for anybody who's initiated contracts previously, these are all the same questions that you're used to. So they should all look familiar when you get in the form.
I need a different mouse. Here you go. Your primary responsible party. This, you notice it's just kind of, the cursor's in there, start typing their name. It's going to pull it from the address book. You got your record details. Again, these fields should look familiar when we looked at the contract record itself. Not all the fields are there. Some of them your contract liaison is filling out. The fields marked with a red asterisk are required. You'll put the proposed vendor name, contract liaison kind of takes care of pulling the exact one from the address book. And again, that's just to keep your address book clean.
What did internal legal entity mean?
These are your internal legal entities that will,
Got it. Okay. Just the organization.
Correct.
Thank you. Yep.
That's our way when we use that term, because when we say organization, we also realize that could be an outside organization, so an Ntracts, and you see that, that's why. And that connects to the security, that's how we secure your record. And at the very bottom, this is a document upload. So you'll see with the directions, you can drag it right into that dotted area, or you can go ahead and do a traditional browse. One thing I want to point out is this category here. No, that's not what I gotta go back. I'm trying to remember what it is. There are a few contract requests, and maybe Erin, you could jump in here too. I'm trying to remember. These are dynamic. That we have, here it is. Templates for you. There they are. So if it's one of these, we have, your project team has created what's called a hot doc template for your draft. Okay, and so the contract liaison would be cleaning that up, and then that's what would be sent to you for review. If it's not one of those, then you're uploading the draft essentially to that document upload is what I'm trying to get at here. Okay, so once you do all that, you can upload multiple documents, whatever you need there, and then you have a comment section. Again, treat that as an email. What's important information that needs to be known? These comments will be carried throughout the workflow and then mapped to the contract record itself as well. If you accidentally start a workflow, or even if you're just curious and only getting the beginning stages of Ntracts, you've got a bail out here, the stop workflow button. Because if let's say you leave this, you're like, oh, I'm just playing, I just wanted to train or show my colleague. If you leave this, you're going to be getting one of those pending item emails, and it's going to bug you about this. So you could bail yourself out here. No one would know at this point, because it's just in your inbox. And feel free to do that. I mean, we're curious, we want to interact with the system, but your project team has heavily tested this, so you can have all the confidence there. Other buttons here, there is an auto save you can see, but it'll flash, I think it's like every 3 minutes. So if you get pulled away, or if you have to go look for more information, or you don't have everything, to use that. If you're done, you've logged everything, you're ready to move it, it's finish mark complete. That's a big thing. I'll have someone call support, Ntracts support, and they're like, I built this out and it's not moving. Well, I go in their inbox, they didn't mark it complete. So this is your final step. So give it your blessing to move forward. Okay. So I went ahead and filled one of these out for time. And I'm not going to show you like what your contract liaison does and all of that. I want to show you, if you are a reviewer, what you can expect to receive. I'm going to act like I'm in the reviewer's inbox. You'll see here, it's called a contributor request. It'll have the contract record number along with the contract name. When you click on the inbox line, the message line, it shows up down here. If you are a person that maximizes your screen or has like a high resolution, I'm going to warn you, you're going to click on this and you're like, it's not opening. It's down here. It's just, you might have your screen maximized. So one of the things I do, because I want to class that message list, I want to focus on the message, click on this orange handlebar button right here, and it'll roll it up right here. If I want it back, I can click on it again. Now I can focus on my message and not see all that other junk up there. Okay, so at the very top, some information. It's going to let you know who the originator was. There's going to be a real name there. The decision controller, so that's going to show your contract liaison name, and it's going to let you know you were identified as a contributor. Gosh, I didn't think I touched the screen. It keeps making marks. Probably this thing. I'll fix it later. I apologize. It's also going to show you who are other participants that were specified in this route. So sometimes that's helpful information to know. So in the user column, it'll show exact names, not my generic. It'll show their role. And then the special instructions that the contract liaison gave them. I just mocked this up. Comments? Oops. Too fast, sorry. There's any comments that were put in. Any documents that were attached. Here's the part that's one of the cool features that you guys have. It's the in-app editing piece. So I chose for this particular one I submitted, it was a education grant, I think. Yes, it was right there in the name. If you're the reviewer, you need to open that document and redline it. You're going to click on the document, and you get this drop down. You're going to do edit in browser, and a little tool called Only Office will open. You're going to make your changes. I already made one here. I was playing with this last night. Because of your role in this, you're not going to be able to accept any changes. You're just making the changes. The contract liaison will be in charge of accepting or declining them. So one of them here, I just added this information. Now, in this real scenario, the contract liaison would have finished filling in this template. But in this purpose, I went ahead and just put an edit there so you can see what will happen. It will track who it was and show your name. Then when the contract liaison gets this back, they'll be able to accept or reject your redlining. Okay? You'll notice there's no save or anything. It's automatically saved. It's all done. You'll make your redlining. You'll close out this window when you're done. And it'll be updated. So when the document goes back to the contract liaison, they will see all of that. You'll notice when I was actually on the contract record itself on the documents tab, there was also that drop down to do it there as well. Okay, this is in the workflow. That's for, execute. Obviously, those at that point are going to be a PDF and locked down so that changes can't be made. But just so you understand, you do have that interaction on that tab. And then ultimately, your key decision as the reviewer is, should this contract process continue, or should it return, which ultimately is declining it? We're gonna do continue, or obviously in the best case scenario, you will give your feedback, whatever that would be. And then if for some reason you need to upload some other document, something like that, you can, but, if you're just redlining up here, obviously that might not be the case. But there can be some reasons why you would need to. Now below that, these questions would all have been filled out by the contract liaison. So if you want to review that information, if you need it, it will be there for you. You can see, those are things that would be filled out. And then you can see what the requester put in as well. Questions from any reviewers about your interaction? Pretty straightforward, I think. You're opening it to redline and then you're continuing, clicking continue or return to decision. Erin, did you want to add anything for reviewers at this point?
If there's a PDF, if we don't have a Word document, you're gonna have to just open the PDF document and then type your comments in. You obviously won't be able to redline it. And did you show where their instructions are, like from us? Like if we say,
The comments?
yeah,
Yeah, so you'll have two places, let me reiterate that. So in the route details, in the special instructions, look for your name, see if they put any special instructions, and then obviously you always want to review the comments underneath as well. You really want to pay attention, a lot of times we might just scroll past real quick to get where we know when you do, but really pay attention to that information.
yeah, this box that says comments, if you're a reviewer, you're probably used to seeing some pretty long comments from us. That's where all those really long comments will be. If it's a PDF, if it's a Word document, we're still going to try to keep, the red line and the comments in the Word document as much as we can.
Thank you. As far as other messages of what you would see, if for some reason you are someone who's going to be doing a wet signature, you will get a message in your inbox. Sorry, I don't have one there. Very similar, but it'll say signature request. You'll find your document. You will need to download it, print it, sign it, re-upload it, and then attach it into your message, and then you hit continue, and it would be attached to the workflow, and then go back to the contract liaison for wet signature. Okay. For e-sign, my understanding you guys are rock solid on that. We don't need to go over that, but it will be delivered to your email. And everything will be signed once. One of the cool things about the DocuSign, I don't know if this is different than Ntracts, but once all parties have signed, all of those parties get a final copy from DocuSign to their email, and then as well as it's mapped to the Documents tab at Ntracts. So no one has to go, no human has to go and physically upload that. Other questions? Anything else you need to cover? I don't think so. Yeah. Once this is done, that goes back to the contract liaison. Now, there might be someone upstairs with questions that might be routed back to you, if there's still questions, so be on the lookout for that. But obviously you'll get a pending item email as well.
They also have to hit the finish button, right?
Absolutely, yes. Anything in your inbox, you would need to click that finish mark complete, correct? And then, so just to kind of, to reiterate as we wrap up here, your contract record number link is there, okay? So when I gave that earlier example of it's been weeks and you're like, where is this? You could click on that contract record link. It's going to open the summary view. Remember how to open the actual record from summary view. Here. Go to the Actions tab, and then you should see all the various steps. Sometimes you might just be curious. It might not be weeks. It might just be, okay, what does so-and-so have to say, or what were the red lines, or what were the comments? So just kind of having that visibility and knowing where it's at in the process, which is the cool part of our system.
And I think for most users, the software is going to look a little bit different, but your process is going to remain pretty much the same. So if you initiated contracts previously, you're going to initiate them now. If you didn't, you're going to follow the same process, use the same resources that you did before to help you do that. So the software look is just going to be a little bit different, but if you have any questions, just keep on the same process that you did before and just ask your contract liaison or value analysis if you went through them before to help you initiate contracts.
Any other final questions for me? All right, well, thank you for your time today, and have a good rest of your day. Sorry, I'm not gonna go out very far. Really? I know, right? Like, Elijah? Yeah, he's, has some respiratory issues in the first year of life, so now. Don't have any.
Maybe it was still down there.
You know, there's 5,000 listeners, and then that day,
Very good.
yeah, so.
I didn't know if I did first shot.
One and only. Yeah, he's an honorary little kid. He comes right on,
They usually do.
Yeah. I told him about Ireland.
I know. Did they receive them? Possibly for this weekend.
But it is, I know. Oh my God.
Are you going to? Yeah, I'm going to a lot of
Walker?
Sorry.
With the Ryan shoes.
You were? Okay, doing a visit to your daughter?
Yeah, they just one big party.
Was it
Well,
home?
so if you are going, if you have
Yeah.
like equipment, product, service, anything that needs to go through
Did they have a very good football team this year? Oklahoma State. They've had good ones in recent years, so I don't know.
I want to say they
would not go
was.
You would probably start.
Illinois ended up coming on to win this past weekend. I took my two boys to Buffalo Wild Wings for lunch, so they wanted to go eat there. And I saw it was on the big screen, and they were winning by 13 or so. I'm like, well, there's the blood.
So I would
So-
sit there.
After last week, now they have this whole new.
Yeah, two in a row. They got a ranked team. So, although Wisconsin got there. But
Okay,
they couldn't-
yeah, wrote that down. And I will double check,
Yep.
they're supposed to be moving all
See you back there.
stuff over, but, I will check on it and I'll email you.
I just didn't know.
Yeah. So what exactly do you, so I use
The critical base in Ntracts to signal any kind of rate increase that may be coming.
okay,
Those are usually, I think, 120 days out. Gives us the opportunity to work on that amendment when the amendment's needed for the rate increase. The other concern is amendments that just go under in the system, just something different. I mean,
yeah, the managed care contracts are like kind of a different animal.
right.
So we will be able to like add documents and classify them as amendments.
Okay.
Because most of the time those amendments for managed care don't necessarily change.
Right, they don't typically come to you guys anyway. They're reviewed at our level, and then once they've been signed, then they're just uploaded and
Yeah.
they're good to go.
Yeah, and I think that process will pretty much be the same. I don't know, we can talk through that. I would think on the managed care ones, you might just, once they're ready to be uploaded, you would just email that contract management.
And I think that's currently how we do it
Yeah,
now.
just
For the
then
most
just
part,
needs to go in the
yeah.
file.
It just needs to be uploaded.
Yeah, so we can, and there's, I think dates that we can add in Ntracts that will function similar to the federal date.
Okay. Yeah, that's my biggest concern,
Yeah.
because there's way too many contracts.
Yeah, you would never.
I can't keep up with figuring out who has a new, with DMH just coming on and then just now learning their agreements, and that's gonna be still in Ntracts, I'm guessing, since that's not coming over.
Yeah, those were moving over. We are creating like an organization in Ntracts for them. So we will move them over. They use Ntracts actually.
I don't know if they actually did use them, let's be honest.
They file it to is what it is.
Well, because
There's like.
even their contracts are not all complete contracts.
In there, they're locked.
Yeah, so I have like 4 binders full that their person that kind of handles their managed care contract
I think what
handed off to me.
So what we've been doing is like as those come up for renewal or as we get them in, we're taking them out of like the DMH Ntracts and we're trying to clean them up and like, adding them to our Ntracts. So right now we have 8 contracts in there that we cleaned up. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna move those like 8 contracts over, which none of them are yours, so we're gonna move those over. And then as we get new ones, we're just gonna automatically add them to Ntracts. For DMH.
Okay.
As we move those over, we'll charge you. So again, I think if you have contracts, I mean, it's like, right,
Yeah, I would have to
whatever.
scan everything. I just, one of the contracts they sent me the other day, actually had my truck number on it, and I was like,
It's probably
oh,
their Ntract number.
yes, which you just gave me access to their Ntract, and they're like, I figured it was probably that, I hadn't looked at it, like, oh, but it would make trying to scan their contracts when they ask me a question easier, because right now I'm having to do it by paper, so, which is absolutely a nightmare, but regardless.
Well, as you get that scanned in, and you feel like this is a complete set of documents or contracts or whatever, if it matches what's in their Ntract, or if you have to email it in there, and then you can start adding it into Ntract.
Okay, I didn't know how you wanted me to do that, because I have all of theirs, that they had, at least have a file. Don't know if they're accurate and up to date, simply because nobody seems to manage it over there.
It's a nightmare.
It really is, honestly. And I'm getting more contracts that weren't in the file that they sent me. So,
I don't know how anybody actually.
they didn't, my understanding is they just, Connie, she requested the contract from the insurance claims because nobody even had them. Nobody had them. So I'm trying to like decipher through them, but I wasn't sure. Am I supposed to be putting them into our Ntract or
No, don't put them in our Ntract.
just send them to contract?
Yeah, because like as of today, what Ntract they were just taking like massive reports of all of our stuff in our Ntract.
Okay.
System, like today. And then they're gonna use that information to load Ntract. So if any changes get made to our Ntract as of today, it won't necessarily carry over Ntract because it's kind of like a cutoff day.
Okay.
We can still use Practice Manager for reviews, but.
No, not unless I have a brand new contract.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, it's contract is already.
Okay, or I can hold on to them until we're here. I mean, because at this point, if it's not in Ntracts in their system, I'm still going through the agreements and doing them paper-wise. I'm perfectly fine with holding on to them until Ntracts is up to date and you guys are ready to add DMA.
I'm first, the Ntract that will be live, and we can, it'll be live before then, but we're gonna do some like audit things on our end just to make sure things came over right. So I'd say hold on to them maybe until then, and if you don't need them in there right away.
No, because
once you think like this is as clean as it's gonna get, or you can send it to like all the stuff you can want in one file. For some reason they have something else, and once you fall into that, right.
Aaron, on the medical director side, are all those time records going in there?
They should.
Okay, is there, a lot of times we look at that, the cost report needs. If we don't see something, should we revert back to Kate to ask about it or go through the liaison?
I would say go through the liaison. It's just Lanny and me and Gretchen, so we'll probably work through Ntracts and like, but they should be pulling all of that right now we're trying to enter anything that's a current agreement in Ntracts and anything that's expired. So right now, all of our archived files, we're not gonna bring them over because they're not yet contracts, so that's gonna cut down on our data migration a little bit.
Our stuff would probably more relate to the IT stuff at the moment.
Right, yeah, all those things should be.
Okay.
It's super scary. It's like, we don't see very, like, all those files of like.
One step at a time.
I know, right?
Deep breath.
So then the other question is, currently we use the notes tabs in Ntracts, just basically emails that we may have received from the rep that confirms that this is basically the understanding of the language or whatever. Will that still be able to be stored in Ntracts?
Yeah, so, there are places in Ntracts where we can store, all those things. And we did create reports for Ntracts for all the notes, like, which were read and stuff.
Okay.
A lot of people, their notes are junk, but,
Ours in most cases are like an email that may have been, we may have uploaded because, you know, the interpretation of the contract is this, and they, you know, have agreed that this is the interpretation, and this is what they're gonna do moving forward.
Right.
And we keep them because, you know, who knows, just 4 years down the road,
Right.
they may decide that's what they wanna do.
This is just a test site, so this is all just like, typically means for junk or whatever, but, all that stuff can be
In documents.
kept, like, emails can be kept in documents.
Okay.
Like, if I wanted to, you can, like, add documents here, like, I'll just, I don't know if I have anything on my desk.
But it's pretty much the same, it's just gonna be under documents and not,
Yeah.
not notes.
So, like, yeah, so, like, if I have this email, right?
Yeah.
If I did that, I can just, like, upload this, and I can know, pick, you know, what kind of document I want. There's nothing in here that says email, but, you know, you can just call it an attachment.
Okay, yeah, and that's fine. And you can just put a description of what it is.
No. Well, there's a current executed addendum amendment. So, yeah.
Yeah, because right now, we just upload them.
Mhm.
So once it's been signed off by both parties, Katie
Yeah.
signs off on that, we currently just upload that amendment
Okay.
under the, most of the time it's on for attachments, because that's who,
Right,
I
right.
just follow whoever
And
was
it-
before.
You guys get in there and whatever your permissions aren't allowing you guys to do what you need to do, we can modify those.
Okay.
We I had to go through every single user of the whole system and say like what they could do, so. And we try to make like categories of people, so if they're not quite right, we can change individual users or whatever.
Okay.
You can just put like, email, blah, 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 whatever,
Okay.
and then add the document. And then it'll be in there
Okay.
as a record.
Perfect, that's exactly what I was looking for, because I know that.
And then I mean, for me, this is kind of one thing I don't really like, but like, every attachment that everybody's ever put in is gonna show up there. So if you like want to, you know, only see attachments and you don't want to see all of these other things, like you don't care about time records, there's 100 time records in there, there's volume, whatever. If you just click, you know, whatever type you want, then it will narrow down
Okay. Yeah, and
what it is.
so we'll just make a decision on how we're gonna do it in managed care.
Yeah.
Attachments, we're just gonna put it all under attachments, but we're gonna put it under whatever that is. Yeah, whatever is the best fitting.
Right, and I mean, you could keep it under, legal regulatory if you think that that's where you want to keep it, or, if you want, we can work with Ntracts, and I could have them add a type that just says managed care.
Okay. That might be
If that,
better.
that would be, and then like any documentation you guys want to put in the files.
I think that might be better.
In managed
If we did
care.
just managed care.
Okay.
That way, it would just be,
Everything.
we
in
would
one?
know that everything that,
Okay.
Wouldn't be a search. You can find.
yeah, and attachment wise, trying to remember what we,
And when you said they're gonna move everything over today, is it after end of business day? Have they already begun?
Right now, I don't know. They're running reports, so they're getting there and like running reports about like everything that's in there. Ntracts was gonna, we've asked them to provide us all the documents. And so Ntracts is going in there with some sort of like program and just pulling it, like all the documents.
I just think I know that amendment that I'm hopefully gonna be able to do today.
yeah.
But if you have one, so you can still get in there and use it. You just can't, change it, but you can use it and still do your, like if there's an amendment we need to review or whatever, we can.
You don't have to even need,
Okay.
that is one that just,
It's
it's just,
signed.
yeah, it's already signed, it's been approved by managed care company.
Then just send, once it's signed and ready to go and it's ready to go into Ntracts, just send it to contract management and be like, this needs to be uploaded to this, like, Ntracts file. And then we'll either do it or wait till Ntracts is up and we'll do it for you then.
Okay. And we're gonna have to look at those anyway, once they get into Ntracts, to make sure everything's there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, then, I'm sure people, requests that have come in that like these changes need to be made to Ntracts files and then we apply for us to go in there and just like,
Yeah.
have to do them all.
I just know managed care is gonna be a bigger beast than probably the rest of them.
Yeah.
Just because there's still documents in there, our rate sheets, are the way that we.
And Ntracts are not gonna go away, so it's not like you're just, you don't need it, so. Well, mine says January 1.
Very good, so that's good.
We'll just
try
it.
Yeah, okay, so that way.
Well, it'll be
I
fine,
feel
as
better.
long as it's still there.
Oh, okay, sure.
Perfect.
That way we just,
Yeah.
more into it.
Sure. Overall group.
Okay.
It's not documented.
I'm Lanny, by the way. I'm Sarah, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Well,
Did
no.
you think the training was?
So think about a big book.
Yeah, I really, thank you so much. I'm not in that quiet group, I think they were like, contract. I'm actually pretty.
Roughly, we're probably 10,
Right?
probably short of 50, sorry. Contract.
And
Then we come up with like monsters.
Yeah, right.
There's
That's a really good sign of your body.
60, yeah.
Yeah, 60. But one of my.
Well,
We're
we're not
really
real
helpful.
helpful, we don't,
We're
so no matter what you
Thank
do.
you.
Good.
Because.
We're not transferring over the real estate.
That's good that they. You're kind of like,
Or no,
we don't want to deal with our contract liaisons, they're rude.
Be short.
I mean, we do.
Well,
I
I
have
have almost, I'm probably have everything.
They'll do it,
in
I mean,
paper.
they'll not typically do anything to.
But I'm not sure.
Hi, Dave. Good, how are you?
So, I need to, I
Oh,
do
I mean,
that's the way I'm gonna
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm not good at telling things that like don't have fun. I think it's probably just a good.
Right, well,
But it's right there, so it's out.
well, I think our contract
Said,
is,
so am I supposed to be able to just send this to someone? I do all the work.
so it's not like, it's not like,
like.
it also.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So that makes me feel better. Well, I'm thinking with DMH, I'm already dealing with DMH and trying to sort through
It really is.
their,
I understand, you have a passage of
their contracts, what the impact of.
They could get so much, they could get a lot of it.
And we-
I have to go in there and look, yeah, and they can see the.
I don't know.
Like, if they're, not only is it where it's happening, like,
our contract that we're gonna have to like run out.
I have,
We're gonna take all the
reference guys, I can give you guys, if you want it,
During this.
kind of as a indirect way to do have people email you, it's kind of.
It's only when you get people to say,
I was like a free one question I wrote.
You know, me, we're gonna have to be like, we're dropping on that. People be like,
Yeah, you could always just kind of.
Yeah.
Push them over and.
Never.
I'll make sure I do the same.
All right.
thing.
Yep. If I could think of anything else that we like.
Yeah,
Specifically, it's probably a little bit outside of the norm.
Yeah.
It's normal, all the rest of it.
It's the only thing with that FAQ page,
Those are my biggest questions for the login and the critical data, because there's absolutely.
We're like,
I
yeah.
keep track of. every contract that renews and what weird thing.
If for some reason the critical dates don't take over how you want them, I might like run a report of all your contracts and you can just tell us, I want a date for, this many days for this one, and we'll just make sure we go in and redo them.
Yeah.
Make
And
sure
it's
they're right.
and so the critical date, there should trigger some kind of email that there's something to do.
Right.
Because I will rely on that heavily.
Yeah. In here?
To keep track of, okay, I know I have to work on this agreement
Right.
with the rep.
Yeah.
To go over.
I know. You do that, I do that.
If it wasn't for that, I don't know that I remember.
Right. I know.
Yeah.
There's too many
There's
things
too
to
many.
remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, good, thank you.
Yeah.
Megan, not Megan, Erin, how did you think it went with pacing and everything in the first session, anything before we?
I think it went pretty well. I mean, they were pretty quiet.
Anything else you were expecting to see or that you want me to show or something I can remove for just the pivot to this afternoon? Or it seemed like they all kind of, they weren't complete, like they were interacting, they were nodding, no one fell asleep, which is always good, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I did stuff recording.
I did, okay, well, actually, I stopped sharing, so I guess we're,